let's just sew whatever. Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. In today's video we are going to be making the Magdalena circle bag from Oro Rosa Patterns. Shut up and get out of town, look how cute this is. I love it. The changes that I've made are not including really any stabilizer, but that's because I made it out of all vinyl. The only stabilizer I used is SoFuse Plus in the gusset. Everything else is just vinyl and waterproof canvas. And then I added a 1.5 inch D-ring to the back so that this could be a convertible backpack. It doesn't have to be a backpack or a crossbody bag. It's convertible. You can put the top down and enjoy the sun. On the inside, I've only added a zippered pocket just because I think this bag is kind of small and you don't need a ton of pockets. Plus it's got two exterior slip pockets here. So that is the bag. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. If you're not already subscribed, please feel free to do so. Yeah, let's get started. Okay, so here is my first version of it. It's not terrible, but you can kind of see there how crooked. Oof, look how crooked that is. And again, I was just kind of rushing through it. So the price on it is $95, just because it's still a good bag, but I rushed through it quite a bit. So as far as pricing goes, I would probably price it at $110 or $120. And that's just because of time, materials, etc. So whatever you're using, it might be more, it might be less, but you price what you feel comfortable. Okay, so as far as hardware goes, I have a total of 4 3/4 inch D-rings, 2 3/4 snap hooks, 1 3/4 slide adjuster, and then I have a 1.5 inch D-ring because I'm going to make this a convertible crossbody to backpack situation. I've got my binding cut out of waterproof canvas. This is 1 inch wide by the length of waterproof canvas, so like 60 inches. And then I've got my center panels, my lining panels. I have cut out the centers, the 4 centers of all of these pieces. At least I thought I did. Maybe I only did the lining so far. Oh, okay, I just didn't do this one piece, but I will. Okay, great. So I've cut out 4 notches. I have decided not to use any Decaville because I am using vinyl for the entire bag. I really don't think it's going to need any stabilizer. The one I did make was way too thick. So here are my front slip pockets. I've got an interior zippered pocket, my zipper panel, my gusset, which I did stabilize with SoFuse Plus. And then I've got my main straps, my crossbody strap, and then these are going to be the 3/4 inch D-ring connectors for the bottom of the bag, and then this is my 1.5 inch D-ring for the top of the bag to create our backpack. So this bag is actually really quick to cut out. It is on the smaller side, but I'm excited to jump in. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and start by sewing up the straps for the bag. I always think that's kind of the best course of action. These are all 3/4 inch wide. There are options in the pattern. You could do 1 inch wide if you preferred. I'm using 1/2 inch wide double-sided tape just down the center of the strap. And you could go ahead and just tape both sets of straps while you're here. Couldn't hurt. I do kind of the lazier method, the time-saving method on the straps, and I did not cut out the overlay just because, again, I'm working with a thicker vinyl. But the Oro Rosa patterns are just insanely well written to give you the best results with the material suggested. So definitely feel free to follow as it's written. Okay, so peeling off the double-sided tape. Don't let it fall on itself, that would be bad. And then I'm just gonna fold the long raw edge in towards the center. I am using a printed vinyl for the accent fabrics, and then I'm using a holographic vinyl from Bodio, kind of as a secondary fabric, more like a contrast. I thought about doing it all in the same print, but it's a little overwhelming altogether. And I just think that holographic vinyl will be a really fun, like, pop of color. What I really like about the size of the main panel is it's small enough to get out of like a 10-inch roll of printed vinyl. So I think that's really cool. Okay, so my stitch length is set to 5, and I'm just gonna sew down all 4 sides of the crossbody / backpack strap. Turning my machine on would help quite a bit. Okay, and then I'm gonna grab my hardware really quick. I always like to use up my hardware first, so that one, I know if I'm missing anything that I need for the bag, and 2, it just kind of helps get all the little pieces out of the way before you start focusing on the bigger picture. Love this purple. Okay, so I've got the center bar sewn into place, and then I'm going to grab one of my snap hooks and slide it through. And then there's my center bar, so you're going to push it to one side and slide your strap through. And then you're going to push the remaining vinyl to one side and then pull your strap through it. This is the 3/4 inch wide slide adjuster that I sell on my website. They're fairly thick, but if you've got a vinyl that's like really thick, it's not really going to work. But you could always do like a double-sided strap using a thinner fabric or something like that. And then to finish it off, we're just going to slide our strap through the other end and do a little box stitch. And then to protect my vinyl and hardware, I'm just using this little leather piece to prevent from making any marks on the strap. And there is our strap finished. And just think, when we get done with the bag, like, we won't even have to worry about this when we get there. I was kind of roughly editing a Throwback Thursday video, and I did the straps last, and I was like, girl, you could have been done with that. So there's our strap, and I'm just gonna set it aside. Okay, so we're just gonna continue on working with straps. Get them out of the way. And I'm gonna fold the long raw edge into the center line. And the way that she has the straps sewn, you're not gonna sew like 1/8 of an inch from the outer edge, you're gonna sew like 3/8 of an inch from the outer edge. And then you'll make some really fun box stitches in the center. So it kind of creates a unique handle situation. I know that I'm like the last person to make this bag, but just slowly getting there, you know. I think this bag would be really fun to print a little bit larger. I know that's ridiculous coming from me who scaled down the Erica and stuff like that. Like, can't you just accept the pattern the way it's written? No, I cannot. I was worried for a second that I wasn't filming. Okay, so there's that. And then I'm going to sew this other one, and then I'm going to check my pattern instructions to know where to make those marks. This is my first time sewing with this vinyl, and so far I like it. It's a vinyl that I will be carrying eventually. It does have like a glitter overspray on it, but it's not like a rough glitter. But I will say that it transfers. You can see it on my fingers. So that's kind of frustrating, but as long as we're very clear about that, maybe people won't mind too much. So I'm going to make this the front of my handle. You can see there's more of a print there, and that side doesn't have much. So let's go ahead and double check the pattern for where we need to make those marks, and we'll keep sewing on. Okay, so the markings are at 6 inches and 7.5 inches from each end. See that, so I'm just gonna mark one at a time. So 7.5 and 6 inches. This is my second time making this bag. My first one I was making in a rush, so it doesn't look great, but it's not terrible, you know. So we're gonna start at that center line and sew until we get 1/8 of an inch away from the outer edge, and sew down until we get to that other line. so make sure that you know where it is. I'm using the silver marking pencils that I sell on my website. Well, they're pens. They do wipe off the vinyl, but they can sometimes leave a slight residue, so you want to be very careful with where you're placing it. It does not come off of cotton fabrics, so again, just be careful when you're placing it. So I'm gonna pull all my threads to the back, and then in the pattern, she has instructions written for how to like sneakily hide where you started your sewing and ended it. So if that's something you're interested in trying, check it out. And then I'm gonna grab a piece of double-sided tape to put on the end of our strap to hold into place. So there's the back side and there's the front side, and you can see that fun stitching on the main handle. So we're gonna repeat this on the other handle, and then we will attach it to the main panel. Okay, so now we're going to attach the handles. I'm gonna grab my other main panel. Where are you at? Where'd you go? Come back. Okay, there we go. Right? No. Way down at the bottom. Okay, so we're gonna find our center mark. And I'm just going to make a little tiny center mark down at the bottom. You can kind of see that silver line. And we're gonna line up our ruler on that center line, 2 inches up from the bottom. And then I'm just gonna kind of double check that this line is straight, because the first time I made it, my straps were all kinds of crooked. My goodness, it was a mess. Just gonna double check that that line is nice and straight. Looks good. Okay. So then we're gonna grab our handle. I'm gonna lay my ruler on that center line. This is a 4-inch wide ruler, so this is perfect for this purpose. And peel off our double-sided tape. Oh, don't let your ruler shift like I just did. Line that up, make sure it's nice and center. And you're just gonna lay that handle up against the ruler on both sides with the bottom at that 2-inch line. Just make sure that your handles are pressed up against the edges of that 4-inch wide ruler. Perfect. So if you have that overlay piece cut out, it's going to overlap all of that, but I decided not to, so I'm just gonna take a little bit of my saliva. You don't have to do that. You could use a little bit of alcohol or like a baby wipe, but just a little bit of water or something will help get it off too. And just kind of wipe it away. Okay, we made it weird. Yeah, we made it weird. Okay, and then I'm going to sew that strap into place. We're gonna sew up to the 6-inch line that we made earlier. So there's what it looks like from that side, and there it is there. I'm super excited for this color combination. And that double-sided tape is really going to help make sure that your strap doesn't shift. If your machine has issues with double-sided tape, just make sure you're using like a 1/4 inch wide maybe, so that your needle avoids sewing through it. Okay. We'll repeat that on the other side. Okay, so the next thing we're gonna do is work on those front slip pockets. Where are they? You don't have to add both. You could just add one, really, but then you'd want to make sure that you've got that overlay panel so that your straps aren't just floating in the open. We're going to sew along that top curve. Repeat on the other side. I'm never super worried about my linings matching exactly, as you can see, because when you flip it and top stitch it and baste it, like you're going to trim it down again anyway, so I'm never super worried about it. But then I'm going to use some pinking shears on this curve so that there's no weird puckering. And then if you can use your iron to kind of press this seam, it will help. I can on the waterproof canvas side, but I can also just kind of roll that seam in between my fingers so that it lays nice and flat. Normally these pockets have a but a layer of stabilizer. Either Decaville Light, something like that. But again, I'm using all vinyl and I really don't think this bag will benefit from that stabilizer in that part. And maybe I'll show my first one versus this one. I literally was like rushing through the first one. I was like, I just want to get this done. I want to see it. I want it for my show. And it didn't sell, which is fine, but so there are those slip pockets. We're gonna top stitch and then baste around the outer edge. Hopefully we don't run out of thread, but if we do, that's fine. And depending on where you want your nameplate, you can either add it to this exterior pocket, or you can wait till you've got your pocket on and add it like up here or something. You want to baste it like 1/8 of an inch from that outer edge. And then you can trim down any excess. Back to top stitch. You could use your pinking shears along this curve if you wanted to. I'm just gonna quickly use my scissors to trim down the excess lining fabric. And I just feel like it's faster to do it this way, but maybe it's not. That and like lining up these two pieces absolutely perfect isn't necessarily always going to happen. Especially since the waterproof canvas seams can be a bit bulky, so they might end up being uneven. Who knows, there's a multitude of reasons. don't worry about it. And then I'm just gonna fold these in half and make a little snip at the bottom so that we can line these up on our main panels. And then line that up with the center snip at the bottom. Super cute. This is already looking so much better than the first one I made. Like the first one I made, the like handles are like going this way at an angle a little bit. They're like swaying in the breeze. So just take your time making sure that you've got the centers figured out nicely. And you know, honestly, you don't even have to add the pockets, or the pockets. Yeah, you don't. You don't have to add the handles if you think about it. Like, it could just be like a nice crossbody circle bag pattern as well. You don't have to do anything you don't want to. That's all I'm saying. Okay. So there is that. We're gonna move to working on the linings, and then I will baste these in place. That way I'm only doing like one basting stitch. And then I will probably place my nameplate, obviously, before basting the lining panels, but just up there. All right, let's move on. Okay, that's much better. So I'm just gonna add one zippered pocket. I'm not gonna worry about a slip pocket, although I do think it would be cute to create a slip pocket out of that front slip pocket piece, so you have another one in the bag. I'm just gonna add my usual 7-inch zippered pocket. Yeah, that'll work. So I'm using my zipper pocket ruler. These are from my website. They are currently sold out, but they will be returning in tons of colors. We're gonna try to make it something we have in stock. Not all the time, of course, but like as much as possible. In different colors, because I think that's fun. And then since this bag is finished with binding, I don't need to worry about leaving a birthing hole open or anything like that. So we're just gonna sew the zipper pocket shut. I like to do 2 parallel lines at that zipper box. The pattern instructions are different than this. Follow whichever you prefer. This is just an easier method for me. Might not be easier for you. Do what you want. We're all about that here. And then I'm cutting through the center into the corners. So cut through the center, and then like 3/4 of an inch or 1/2 of an inch before you get to the sides, you want to snip at an angle. And then turn it so that wrong sides are together. And then we're gonna press with our iron. Okay, so I've got my zipper tape ready to go. And I'm gonna line up the raw edge with the raw edge of my zipper pocket lining. And I like to cut mine really long so that my zipper pull is just completely out of the way so I can top stitch nice and easy. Line that up in the center. You can use double-sided tape, pins, or like a glue stick. to help you hold that zipper into place if you need. No shame in that. Okay, did my bobbin run out just now? Yep, okay. That's okay. So when my bobbin runs out in the middle of sewing something, what I like to do is just lift up my needle, pull on my starting thread, my top thread. So I pull back to where my stitching ended, and then just slowly like back stitch just a little bit. It's pulling up the bobbin thread now, and then you can keep going. I mean, you definitely want to test that on your machine to make sure that it is possible and will work, but that's kind of my little trick for that. Okay, so I'm going to continue sewing along the zipper box, but before I pivot to finish it off, I'm going to pull in the zipper pull, push in, pull, whatever, and kind of resituate that zipper end. Not a spider. And then close off the stitch lines. Okay, and then you can trim off your excess zipper tape, but you do want to trim it to be the width of your zipper pocket. Okay, and then I'm going to grab the other side of my zipper pocket. And I did not cut my zipper pocket lining pieces to the size that are in the pattern. I just have my template piece that I like to use. So you can see it's bigger, but that's okay because I'm just going to trim it to be smaller. So, again, whatever works. And then I will trim down the rest. Woo! This zipper tape is from Ginger. I will leave a link down below to her website, but it's a fun galaxy zipper tape. And I know that 2 Minutes to Stitch also has some, and so does Zipper Valley. They have some of the galaxy tape, as far as I can remember. Okay, so there our lining pieces are finished. Gonna add my nameplate, and then we'll baste everything together. Okay, so I've lined up my center snips on all the pieces, and we're just going to go around the outside, around the outside. I've got my stitch length set to like 5.5, and just gonna zoom along the outer edge. You can definitely make this bag as either a drop-in lining or do the birthing method. But this is not the video showing that, nor will I be making one, just because the binding's actually really easy. Well, I don't know, really easy. It's fairly easy. And with practice, you can get better. Okay, so now we just need to work on our strap connectors. This is the front of my bag, so I'm not going to be using any connectors on this, but I will be on the back. So I need to get those ready. That would be helpful. Do I have my main line piece in here? No. You want to use your main panel piece so that you know exactly where to line these up. But I'm going to stitch down the centers of each of them. I've got double-sided tape in the middle. I'm going to fold these connectors to be 3/4 of an inch. I actually need more connectors. I did not cut enough because I want to add them so that it's a crossbody strap too. Wait, or did I? No, there's no way that's enough. Yeah. Okay. I'll need to cut more of those. And so this one was cut to 3 inches wide by like 2.75, 2.5, something like that. And I'm gonna sew down the folded lines. I already folded it. I was kind of testing to make sure that it's the size I wanted it to be. Okay, and then we'll take our hardware. I love an empty hardware bin. This is our 1.5 inch D-ring. Clip that together. And then these are the 3/4 inch D-rings. So these are going to make this bag into a backpack. And then I'm gonna make another set of these for the crossbody strap connector, and that's gonna go in our zippered gusset. So I'm gonna cut some more of those, BRB. All right, so I've got those sewn up, and I'm just going to slide my D-rings through that. Whoops. Okay. So right now I'm just gonna focus with my 1.5 inch D-ring and my 3/4 inch D-ring. And the 3/4 inch are gonna go on the bottom, the 1.5 inch is gonna go on the top. So I'm gonna center this at the top there. And what's kind of cool is when this isn't in use, you could even use it to like hang your keys on, something like that. And then using this pattern piece, I'm lining up where these strap connectors should go. Awesome. And then I'm gonna go ahead and baste those into place. And you don't want to stitch too much because we still have to sew our gusset into place, and then we're going to add binding as well. So all of that can kind of culminate to perforating the vinyl, which isn't going to make it any stronger. So I'm just adding one line of basting stitching at the outer edge. And trim all those extra little thread guys. So there's what that looks like. And you want to make sure that your hardware stays pointed into the center so that you don't break a needle sewing through it. So now we can grab our last couple of pieces. I've got my zipper here, I'm gonna grab some 1/8 inch wide double-sided tape to keep my zipper in place. The one I'm currently using is from 2 Minutes to Stitch, and it's fine. I have nothing bad to say about it. I did order that score tape from Amazon, but I just decided to use this one first, so who knows how different can they really be, you know? So I'm adding just a little strip everywhere that I'm going to be placing my zipper, even on the waterproof canvas, and this is just going to eliminate the need for pins or clips or basting stitches. We can just go right to sewing it together and then flipping it to top stitch. All right. I've cut my zipper way longer than I need it to be, but that's okay. And then you don't want to pull on your zipper or anything. You want to make sure that you've ironed it nicely and then just kind of press it into place. Don't like stretch it or anything like that, because that's how you can end up with a little wonky, wobbly, timey-wimey zipper. Okay, and then I've got my lining piece. You want right sides together. You want your zipper to be facing together on your exterior. I've cut my lining, as you can see, way wider than I need it to. I like to do that just in case. And then we're gonna sew all the way down. And if you can, pressing this down first helps. I'm gonna use my iron really quick. And then we'll fold this down to top stitch. And you want to make sure that you roll that seam back and forth so that you've got a nice edge on that zipper panel. You don't want your lining to be like too far down or too far up. You want it to be nicely pulled apart at that seam. Okay, and then we're going to work on the other side. We're just going to line up the edges of the main panel and lay it into place. And then kind of flip it over. I can gently press my zipper into place. And then add the lining. I feel like the first couple of times I used double-sided tape instead of basting, like it took a little bit longer, but that's just because I wasn't used to it, which is how most things are. But I really like it because it's kind of a more permanent, like I know it's not going to shift on me. And even when you're basting, sometimes it can shift. So I'm gonna add some steam and press this open, and then we'll fold this open. Okay, so got that nicely pressed, and I'll show you here kind of how you want to top stitch it. You just want to make sure that that seam is sitting nicely, and you don't want your lining to be up too high like that. You kind of see, you want it to be nicely pulled away from that seam. So as I'm sewing it, I'm kind of pulling on my lining fabric and pressing my top fabric down and feeling that edge. Okay, so there is that. So now I'm going to pull my zipper pulls into place on the zipper gusset. I like to add 2 zipper pulls. I just think it's fancy. I don't know. And then I'm gonna lay my crossbody strap connectors over top my zipper. And I'm gonna baste all the way around this panel. So you can see my lining being too long isn't an issue. Same with my zipper being too long, not a problem. Pull that into place. And we can hold on to this zipper piece for another project. And we'll go ahead and trim down our excess lining. And then we're ready to add the bottom part. So you're just gonna clip it into place. My top gusset always seems to be a little bit wider than the bottom, but that's okay. Just center it and then trim the excess. I think I'm probably just cutting it too wide, or my seam allowance isn't quite enough. So you want your lining right sides together and your exterior right sides together. See, there's your lining, there's your exterior. And then it's a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. And watch out for that hardware on that D-ring. And then I don't top stitch through the lining. I only top stitch through the exterior panel. So I'm gonna leave my lining face up and top stitch through the exterior only. So you can see here's my lining piece. I'm flattening down the seam towards the bottom of the gusset and top stitching through that. And not sewing through the lining makes it easier, just in case my measurements were a little off or anything like that, to straighten out the lining piece. So like right here, I like to clip the center of that gusset, and then I'll loop this down. And then if my lining is like too big, I can kind of create a little fold at that seam, and you won't be able to tell because it wasn't top stitched. So when I sew around, it will appear as though I cut it to fit perfectly. All right, so now we are going to baste all of that together. And I am gonna go ahead and sew my main panel a little bit smaller. And we're just gonna repeat that on both sides. And then any excess lining or top zipper panel, I'm just gonna trim off. So you can see I'm gonna trim in between those lines. Okay. Trim any of your extra threads. And then we will mark the centers. Oh, come on. So line up where your zipper panel ends. Fold that in half. You can cut out a little notch or you can make a snip. I've been kind of playing with both. I don't really know what's better. So what do you do? Do you prefer a snip or a notch? I kind of feel like the snip is a little more precise than a notch. I don't know. All right, and since this is a circle, I'm gonna then fold in half the opposite direction and line up the center notches we made there. And make the same notch on the other centers. The latitude and longitude. Probably not accurate in this case, but whatever. Okay. And then I'm not going to need to use any of my hair clips. We're just going to be using the Wonder clips. Oops, come back. All right, so then what I'm gonna do is tuck my straps into that pocket. And you can pick either side to start with, totally up to you. And then this panel here is equivalent on both sides, so there is no like front or back, which kind of makes it nice. But I'm gonna start at the top and add a few clips in this center. And then I'm gonna line up the bottom, snip. Adding a few clips. And then if you wanted to just work around the circle, you can, but I think having the other centers snipped really kind of helps guide it to be a nice circle. And if your gusset is a little bit too small, you can kind of bring in your seam allowance a little bit. I don't think I'll need to, but it's not like it would be the first time that's ever happened. You just want to like pinch the layers together. So it's really up to you which way you want to sew it. I guess you could sew it this way, or you could sew it this way. So whatever works for you. And you want to make sure that you're sewing the layers together past your basting stitches. You want to make sure that your hardware is within the bag, not within your seam allowance. You can kind of tell that even though it's not perfectly clipped together, I'm just kind of focusing on small sections. And slowly adjusting each section. Yeah. Need to glue that in place or something. Alright, so there is that attached. I'm going to go ahead and trim any of my exterior fabric that I can see so that my binding is pretty even. And you can actually add your binding all at once, but I find it a lot easier, especially when I get to the end of the bag. I'm not like, oh, I gotta add the binding now. So what I do is I just add my binding one at a time. So I'm using the trick that Linds Handmade put into the Lindsport mini backpack to kind of trim down your waterproof canvas, and then you just fold it over that raw edge. And you want to make sure that the bottom has a little bit more than the top. So you don't want to fold it perfectly in half. You want to do like 4/8 and 5/8, that kind of a thing. Like just barely a little bit more on the bottom. 4/8. Oh, so 4/8 and 5/8, I'm dead. That's 9. Cool. Not a mathematician, clearly. So I'm just gonna trim it, and I can save this for like a Marcel barrel bag for the side panels and that. And then make it like a little eel head. Fold that under. And then finish clipping that into place. Perfect. And then we'll sew this on as well. When did we run out of bobbin? Okay, not very long ago. Oof. Before I start sewing a bag, I always like to make sure I have like 3 bobbins made. I find that that's a pretty good number. I am using a different color bobbin thread right now, not a big deal. Okay, that doesn't sound good. Hold on. Okay, here we go. Is it still doing it? I think it's a bad bobbin. Dang it. Okay, my bobbin was just not a good one. It was either threaded wrong or not great quality. Either way, it's in the trash now. It lives there. Okay, well, we've got a full bobbin now, and I know that I won't run out on the other side. Okay, so here is what it's looking like. And you want to make sure that you have your handles facing up on that main panel, because that would be heartbreaking to put it in upside down after all that work. Which way? There we go. So let's line up our centers. And you can clip either way you want. Just make sure you stay consistent with the way you clip. So if you want to sew it with this side down, make sure your clips are facing in. If you want to sew it this side down, make sure your clips are facing up. And then we'll just slowly work around each quadrant. If you are worried about any of your layers like shifting, you could use staples to help you hold it all in place. I saw some tricks online where people, before adding binding, will either use like pinking shears along the seam or add little snips to kind of help the circle shape look a little better. I don't really remember if I had any issues with mine the first time. As far as the shape, I had plenty of issues with the bag, but again, I was rushing. So I'm just massaging out any little puckers. We're gonna go ahead and unzip it now. And just kind of flatten this out as best we can. This is already going a lot better without stabilizer on the main panels because it was really thick last time. If you're using a super thin vinyl, you definitely want to add stabilizer, but I feel like you'll be able to kind of tell with your materials. A trick that I used to say is like kind of make a stack of all the layers and see how it feels in your hands before you even sew it together. And like if it feels pretty sturdy on its own, you probably don't need to add anything. Okay. So now I'm going to trim down again any of my exterior fabric that I can see kind of peeking through. And then we'll add that second piece of binding. The waterproof canvas that I am using is the Otter Tex from FWD Fabrics. My friend Alex creates all of the description box links, so feel free to check those out. They work really hard to get all of those. Super appreciated. So once this binding is attached, we're done with the bag. We'll just clip on our crossbody / backpack strap, and that's that. So you can see it stands on its own quite nicely. Well, I guess that's not really fair to say it's being held up by clips. But yeah, let's get these sewn on. Okay. I am using those clips to help hold it. So what I'm doing is I'm pressing down on the clip and kind of letting it guide through. Not always, but in some places, like right there, as I'm kind of removing it, I just let it hold the binding into place. It's kind of always hard, not kind of always, really. It's sometimes hard to explain exactly how I'm doing it, so hopefully that kind of helps. Like some things I do without thinking about it. Can you? All right. Okay. And I'll trim all this off. All right, so now we can turn the bag, unzip it all the way, and just start pushing the bottom up. Push on the gusset using your fist and help press out those layers and press your binding into that seam. Bring your handles up and out. So cute. I'm really happy with the way this one turned out, and I'm glad I decided to remake the bag because my first one was so awful. Ah, hi cutie, how are you? And so you just want to kind of give those seams a little massage to really make sure they're going to sit nicely. Zip this up. I'm really happy with my zipper choice as well. It's really subtle but matches the colors super nicely. So there is the back side and there is our front. And so I actually saw someone post in the Oro Rosa group that you can actually, instead of having like a D-ring, you can just slide your strap through there to create a backpack. And like, yeah, that makes perfect sense. However, I feel like some customers buying the bag may not really realize that that's a way of doing it, so you can always add this. And 1 inch and 3/4 inch should fit through this D-ring, but 1.5 inch will not. And so there it is as a backpack. And it's so tiny and so cute. Straighten that out. So cute. So with extra little scraps I had left over, I thought that it might be kind of fun to create little pulls on my zipper pull. So I'm just gonna kind of clip it into place to see what I think. You could always glue these together and use edge coat or something, but I think I'm just gonna add a rivet and call it a day and just kind of leave it kind of flappy. But we'll see. Yeah, I think that could be cute. So I'm just gonna add one little rivet there. That'll be nice. And then I went ahead and cut a tassel. So we'll do that really quick. And you can use a double-sided tape when you roll this up to help hold it, but I just kind of roll it tightly. And you can add a little bit of glue into the cap. But this vinyl isn't super thick, so I don't think I'll have any issue getting the screw in there. So sorry for the noise. I am using an electronic handheld screwdriver, but I also like to twist it by hand as well. I think it just goes faster. Okay, and then your screw should be able to go in until it's flush. And then there is your fun little tassel. So I thought that would look kind of cute here. You could also use it as a zipper pull, etc. So I'm going to use this handheld leather punch tool. This is from Tandy. Oh, okay. Oh, it was clipped to the table. That makes sense. And I'm just going to use that to create a little hole in both layers. Use a rivet press to set it, but if you have like a handheld press or something, you could use that too. So then I will show you what it looks like as a crossbody bag too. Alright, and that is it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. If you make this bag, I would absolutely love to see it. Thank you so much again to Alexis for allowing me to create video tutorials for her patterns. They're wonderful, and I'm so thankful to be a part of your team. I don't know. I appreciate you not expecting anything from me because that makes it easier for me to give you content. All right, I'll see you guys later. Bye.